Most tax and benefit policies are set by the UK government for the country as a whole, but fiscal devolution means the Scottish government now has powers over a range of tax and benefits too. But what decisions have been made, or ducked, so far? And what changes do the parties propose in their manifestos? The Scottish Government has powers over most elements of income tax, council tax and business rates, taxes on property sales, and taxes on landfill disposal. All told, the revenue from these taxes is forecast at around £17 billion in 2020-21, just under a third of all of the tax revenue raised in Scotland. As for how these taxes differ to the rest of the UK, there is a common thread to Scottish Government tax policy: slightly lower taxes at the bottom and higher taxes at the top than in the rest of the UK. The most obvious example of this is income tax. Under Scotland's complicated 5-band system, people earning less than around £27,000 a year pay slightly less income tax than they would in the rest of the UK. But higher earners pay significantly more. For someone on £50,000, for example, that difference is worth almost £1,500 a year. The same logic applies to properties. Less tax is paid on purchases of low-value properties, and more on purchases of high-value properties than in the rest of the UK. And similarly, business rates are also more progressive than in England. But just like England, the Scottish Government has ducked difficult but much-needed reforms to these taxes. The worst example is council tax. The Scottish Government has reformed it to raise taxes on the quarter of properties with the highest values. But, ludicrously, the entire council tax system is still based on property values from 1991. Using such out-of-date values is increasingly absurd, and whoever wins power, addressing this should be a priority for the next parliamentary term. Within the benefit system, the Scottish Government has used its new powers to create a number of new means-tested benefits and benefit top-ups. These are focused on families with young children, people caring for someone with a disability, and people living in social housing who the UK government says have more bedrooms than they need. Set alongside changes made in the income and council tax systems, the main benefit changes in Scotland have been progressive. Their net effect is to boost take-home incomes of poorer households. But this is paid for by lower incomes and better-off households. On average, these changes cost households £270 per year. For the richest 10% of families, they reduce incomes by almost £2,000 a year. In the current election, the SNP, Conservatives, Labour, Greens, and Lib Dems are all proposing increases in benefits for low-income families with children, and, with the exception of the Lib Dems, for carers too, although the details do differ from party to party. But when you look at parties' longer-term ambitions, the differences look much bigger. The SNP, Labour, Greens, and the Lib Dems suggest a minimum income guarantee and, potentially, eventually, a universal basic income paid to all in Scotland, irrespective of their income. Depending on the levels these policies are set at, they could be very big and very expensive changes. On the other hand, the Conservatives have an ambition to cut income tax, undoing the current Scottish Government's increases for the top half of income taxpayers. They also want to cut tax on property sales. Crucially, paying for big tax and benefit giveaways in what looks set to be a tight funding environment will be challenging, not least because of growing pressures on existing public services and some expensive manifesto commitments to increase public service spending still further. And without increases in taxes or cuts to other areas of spending, or more UK government funding, longer-term and uncosted ambitions look set to remain just that, ambitions. Read more of our analysis at www.ifs.org.uk/Scottish election.